I'll start by turning my microphone on. There we go. Well, we're almost ready for takeoff, so please ensure that your seats are in an upright position with your food trays safely locked in the seat in front of you. Any items that you don't need for this particular flight, you can put underneath and secure it under your desk. And on that note, I'd like to open the regular council meeting of June 9th, 2025 at this point in time. And thanks for anybody logging in to watch what's going on here. I would like to mention that Mayor Gandam sends his apologies and regrets for not being here. He has another commitment that he had to attend to. And while Councillor Elliott is not in the room with us here today, he is online and dealing with some smoke inhalation. So we'll hear his squeaky voice perhaps from time to time throughout this meeting. So welcome everybody. Our open microphone, is there anybody wish to be heard in open microphone? And I have nothing at this point in time, so we move on to number 3, approval of the agenda, and I'd look for a motion to do Sue, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, administration would like to add 2 items to closed session under section 24. One is an update on the work from home completion, and the other is semi-annual required CAO updates to council that are confidential.
And both those will be in closed session?
Correct. And both under section 24.
Thank you. I would be looking for approval of the agenda.
So moved as amended.
Thank you. Any other questions? None? All in favor? And that is approved. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. I'm looking also for a motion. Thanks. Bill's hand was up, so we're good. Councillor Blatz is adopting the minutes. Any questions related to minutes? Errors or omissions? Hearing none, call a question. All in favor? And that
Aye.
Thank you. That's a good loud voice. Councillor Elliott. Excellent. Item number 5, delegations. And we have Glenda Farndon here to make presentation on behalf of STARS. So Glenda, welcome. And please have a seat. Reintroduce yourself if you would, please, and let us know what your role is with STARS. And please also ensure that your microphone is on.
Thank you. Good morning. Well, I'm pleased to bring you your annual update. My name is Glenda Farndon. I'm the Senior Municipal Relations Liaison for STARS, serving and working with all municipal councils across Alberta as well as BC. Just waiting for the presentation to be up. Thank you very much. So first and foremost, I hope that, well, not hope, but I'm sure that you heard that we, on April 30th, lost our founder, Dr. Greg Powell. And so, you know, we were very hopeful that this is our 40th anniversary this year, very hopeful to have shared all the celebrations with him. But we are all committed to continuing his legacy and the fact that we want to continue to provide critical care anywhere for all Albertans, is across the Western Prairies as well, for all the bases we have now, 6 bases across Western Canada, for the next 40 years, for our children, our grandchildren, and the generations yet to come. In a worst case scenario, STARS is your best hope. Next slide, please. So just a quick update. Last year we were able to secure another long-term funding agreement for 10 years with Alberta Health Services. This time it is at $15 million block funding. So this represents about 40% of our direct operating costs for 3 bases in Alberta. This still leaves 56% that must be fundraised. We're very, very fortunate that we have our beloved Alberta STARS Lottery, which basically the funds, net funds pay for one base in Alberta, so approximately $11.4 million per year net. So that still leaves a lot of fundraising for the other two bases to provide services across Alberta, as well as we also reach out to donors in addition for administration costs, for education and training, as well as any highly specialized equipment. So we're very grateful for all the donors that we have that continue to support our life-saving mission. Next slide, please. So this is going to be on a series of clicks. So first and foremost, across the prairies, as well as into northeastern BC, we currently have 95% of all Alberta's municipalities in partnership, so including the Peace River Regional District in northern BC. 75% of these partners are all regional leaders as well, giving at a minimum $2 per capita. One click, please. So this currently shows you the areas that are contributing and a part of the municipal program, but under the $2 per capita minimum that we request. One click, please. This represents all of those that are at a minimum $2 up to $85 per capita that are contributing and providing support for our service each year for their residents. One click. We have 9 provincial leaders across the area as well. Last year we welcomed Birch Hills County. This year we will be having a $1 million logo event in the summer for Rocky View County, as well as next year we will be welcoming 4 other provincial leaders. These provincial leaders have all reached cumulatively over the years of support either $500,000 or $1 million or more, and have their logos represented on the STARS helicopter. One click, please. Now the red outline areas will also show you all of those areas that are complete regional partnerships, meaning that every town and village that lies within a county's boundaries is also a supporter of STARS. So you can see that we're very much uniting the entire province together on ensuring that we all have access to a robust health and safety network. Next slide, please. This is what wanted to bring you kind of a solid 15-year overview within the County of Wetaskiwin, as well as including the City of Wetaskiwin. So STARS missions flown over the past 15 years, which total 882 missions flown in your area. Now, City of Wetaskiwin Hospital also, you are one of the top 3 hospitals that we serve in Alberta. More than 80% of the mission demand is for the City of Wetaskiwin. So in total, 700 out of these 882 missions were flown here for City of Wetaskiwin. Also, you'll see there are many other areas that we have served throughout the county, including search and rescue as well, as we can be the very first to be on, be dispatched and start the mission for search and rescue while RCMP is coordinating their search and rescue teams. So far to date, for 2025, up to April 30th, 21 missions flown so far. So in addition, now this was all the information I had at the time, so there's been significantly more. So I would say you're on par for your average of about 58 to 60 missions per year within your area. Next slide, please. So this is an update as well for City and County of Wetaskiwin boundaries. So you'll see the little blue outline on the left of the County of Wetaskiwin boundaries. And then all of the red dots and locations listed below are the areas where patients from this region, from County of Wetaskiwin and City of Wetaskiwin, have been flown. 408 total area residents flown, 152 were Wetaskiwin residents. When you look at the count by pickup location, 290 of these 408 were actually picked up in Wetaskiwin, leaving 118 residents, which could include your own city residents, have been flown from 43 other locations across 2 provinces where you see the red dots listed. Accidents and illness happen anywhere. Next slide, please. So I wanted to bring you an insight into a day in the life of STARS crew members. STARS is borderless. We are 6 bases across Western Canada. We're annually averaging about 11 missions per day. But more than 65,000 missions have been flown to date. And this gives you an idea of one day in the life of STARS. 18 different dispatches on this particular day. Now you'll see the STARS base that was dispatched, and then the mission type, whether it was a critical interfacility transfer or a scene call. Now have a look at the description. These are all very critical nature types of incidents that our crew must respond to all in one day. And then of course the disposition, whether or not patient was transported by STARS. Number 3 shows that we brought the specialty team for a neonatal baby. So the NICU team, we brought the NICU team, and that baby went by ground ambulance with the NICU team. Number 6 was rollover. But as we received further patient information to our transport physicians in the Link Center, it was deemed that it was not medically required for STARS. So that patient went by ground ambulance, and we were turned around so we could be ready for the next critical patient, which was a workshop explosion. And then, of course, again, with further patient information, our transport physicians determined that it was best for this patient to go by fixed wing. And once again, we're turned around for the next critical mission. Number 10 was out of Grand Prairie, where our patient, this patient in particular, was not able to fly. So whether it was for medical reasons, maybe respiratory distress, maybe that patient could not withstand, air pressures. Maybe it was a bariatric patient where we wouldn't be able to safely secure that patient in the helicopter. So it was determined that it was critical. That patient went by ground ambulance, but with our STARS crew to provide the critical care expertise and bring the critical care equipment and things. All of our equipment are in portable packs, so we can take off and offload anything that we may need to go with a critical patient on any mode of transport, whether it's ground ambulance, Alberta Health Services fixed wing, or STARS. Next slide, please. And there is a new medication. This is a game changer for hemorrhage control. Now, we have been a leader in innovation throughout the world in being the first to bring blood on board more than 10 years ago. So life-saving universal blood on board. We've been carrying 2 units of blood. We have seen so many high-level cases where patients are at risk of bleeding out. So we have increased to carrying 4 units of universal blood now. And that last year, this was approved in Alberta that we could also carry the fibrinogen. So this is a medication that helps that type of patient to build blood clots. So once we give the first 2 units of blood, we can apply the fibrinogen. Helps them to start building blood clots, and then we can apply the second 2 units of blood while we're en route to tertiary care. So this is a significant game changer. We're seeing significant results in these types of patients that are at risk to bleed out in order to get them to tertiary care and buy them that extra time. Next slide, please. And of course, virtual care consultation now. STARS is more than just rapid transport. We can bring virtual care as well, which is a great asset to your local hospital here, in the fact that even if we may be on another mission, your physicians and nurses can call in, have virtual consultation on a secure link, actually show our transport physicians, who are the experts in critical care, the patient, the condition, and our link center and our transport physicians can provide critical care guidance through virtual care consultation, as well as procedural guidance. Many of your local hospitals, they don't intubate and see critical patients every day. We do. And so we can provide virtual care consultation as well. It's another advancement in how we're enhancing rural health care. Next slide, please. So in closing, I would like to say thank you very much, City of Wetaskiwin. We welcome you with open arms to be one of our municipal supporters. Thank you for your contribution at a fixed rate of support each year on a standing motion. I mean, we are a line item in your budget now, and we appreciate that very much. That is giving us that solid sustainability as the demand continues to increase each year. You're currently based at about $1.50 per capita. I look forward to working with your future councils as well, maybe on a graduated plan to get you to a regional leader status. Currently, your residents are served by 2 STARS bases, both Edmonton and Calgary. Your residents can have access to physical response with the STARS helicopter as well as virtual care consultation. Together, we are enhancing rural health care. Your residents have access to STARS 24/7 all across Western Canada. And together, we will celebrate 40 years of serving Albertans, no cost to the patient, because of partnership. A life is saved every day, and for 40 years, that's been possible because of partnership. And with that, I would like to say thank you very much, and I would like to present your council.
In just 1 minute, we'll be happy to do so. If I may, thank you very much for the presentation. It's really impressive what STARS does for the residents of this community, for our area, and for all the citizens of Alberta. And on behalf of council and the City of Wetaskiwin residents, we thank you kindly for what support you provide us in this community. I would ask for a motion from the floor. So moved by Councillor Blatz. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'd ask for...
I do have questions.
Oh, you do have a question. Please go ahead.
But I want her to present the thing first.
Oh, you want to present it first? Okay.
Yeah.
Where would you like to do this, Sarah? I think it should be all of council.
Yeah.
That one. Okay, we'll come right over here.
May I read the plaque? It says, City of Wetaskiwin, thank you for your partnership with STARS and dedication to saving lives.
So I can continue. Yeah.
Councillor Blatz did have a question, so please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted, as she was standing there with the, what she was presenting us, I'm just like, I feel like before we get into pictures, I didn't want, or get into questions, I didn't want you to just have to stand there with the thing while you're answering. So thank you very much for presenting us with that, the plaque that you brought in the picture. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's beautiful what you guys do for this province. I think I learn something new all the time about STARS when you're presenting, because I also didn't realize that STARS can be first on site for search and rescue. So that was really interesting to hear. And you guys continue to do incredible work. So thank you for everything that you do. And my condolences about your founder as well. I did see that in the news, and it's incredible the work that has come from the very beginning to what it is now, and I love hearing about the updates that you bring to us. My only question is that when you began the presentation, you said that Alberta Health Services is the agreement that you have for funding. Mm-hmm. Is that strictly with Alberta Health Services, or is that with the Alberta government?
Well, we're considered a provincial province. Like, the agreement is with Alberta Health Services. per se. We do have 3 different funding agreements as well. So
Oh,
we
okay.
have a funding agreement with Saskatchewan as well as Manitoba.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I was just curious about that because it seems like the future of Alberta Health Services seems to be changing monthly now. It seems like there's always something new coming up about it. And I was just curious if there's any, I guess, fear or, yeah, I guess if there's any fear about the future of your funding agreement with AHS because of it seeming very rocky right now.
I understand that, but I would say that it kind of goes hand in hand, you know, that as we are considered a provincial government, we are the critical care, dedicated critical care provider for Alberta. So I would say, no, I don't believe that there is any concern. You know, we do have this new funding agreement. We previously had a 10-year agreement from 2010 to 2020 with Alberta Health Services. During the COVID years, it was year to year, you know, trying to find our way as to where we would land. But this agreement is in place, so I would say that, no, I believe it is secure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
And again, Glenda, thanks so much for the presentation and all the work that STARS does across this country, and we wish you safe travels home.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your the opportunity to bring you an update, and I'll look forward to seeing you again. I did bring you the 40th anniversary calendar as well as a impact report. And if you could please pass on a set to your local fire department as well, because we love them very much. We can't do what we do best without them.
And they're here at the very back.
Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you so much,
again.
Glenda. Moving to number 7, consent agenda. I would ask if there's anything councillors would like to have pulled from the consent agenda. Seeing none, I would ask for a motion to approve. Councillor Blatz. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Number 9, Committee of the Whole. 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3 all come from consent agenda. They've already been approved by the motion that Councillor Blatz put forward. So we will move to item number 10, staff reports for decision, and 10.1, volunteer management policy CO-058. And Zanette, just for the purpose of persons watching at home, if you'd identify who you are and what your role is in the city, please. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zanette Frost. I am the manager of the Recreation Department here at the City of Wetaskiwin. So good morning again, and today I am bringing forward the final draft of this policy for your approval. Volunteers are the heart of our community. They help deliver city programs, services, and events that enrich our lives and those of our residents. This policy reflects our commitment to supporting and valuing those who give time and skill to help others. The volunteer management policy is designed to provide clear guidance on how we recruit, support, and recognize, to ensure a positive and consistent experience for both volunteers and staff, and strengthen the impact and sustainability of our programs. The policy is more than a document. It is a statement of values. It shows that the City of Wetaskiwin is committed to building strong partnerships with our volunteers. We respectfully request that Council approve this final draft policy of CO-058, and I thank you for your time and attention, and happy to answer any questions or provide further clarification.
Zanette, thanks very much for the work you've done on this policy, and I would open the floor for a motion, please. Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. I move that City Council approve the volunteer management policy.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Zanette? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
And carried unanimously. Thank you, Zanette.
Thank you.
And we now move on to Public Code of Conduct Policy CO-059.
Hello again. I haven't moved. I'm here to present the final draft of the Public Code of Conduct Policies, CO-059, for your approval. The City of Wetaskiwin is committed to providing a safe and respectful workplace for all employees. Under Alberta's Occupational Health and Safety Act, we are required to ensure that our staff are protected from harassment and unsafe interactions. This policy will help us meet that obligation while also supporting positive and respectful engagement with the public. The Code of Policy clearly sets expectations for public behavior interacting with city employees. It is designed to promote mutual respect, support the effective delivery of city services, align with provincial and federal legislation, and provide a framework for action when behavior crosses the line. It has 4 main goals of focusing on respect, positive behavior, fairness, and clear rules. This policy is about protecting people, both our public and our employees. It ensures that everyone knows what is expected and what will happen if those expectations are not met. With all the previous revisions incorporated, we are now seeking Council's final approval for Policy CO 059. Thank you, and I welcome any questions or comments you may have.
Once again, thank you, Zanette, for the work done on this particular policy, and I would look for a motion from the floor. Councillor Blatz. Could you please read that into the record, please?
Yeah. Move that City Council approve the Public Code of Conduct Policy CO-059 as presented, and I do have a question.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Actually, it's not a question, it's a comment. While I was at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities conference last week in Ottawa, one of the main topics of conversation for the first couple days was specifically about this. It was talking about public code of conduct policies. A lot of communities are talking about doing that now. I was moderating a session on misinformation and how it's affecting other communities, and we were at fire capacity in that room because so many people are dealing with it. And so it's great for me to see the good work that we're doing on this, because it's also inspiring other communities to do the same and protect their city workers as well. So thank you for this.
Any further questions? I do have a couple. The first one, I was going to start by saying I think it's easy to make policy, and I don't mean to be trivial with that remark. I think the harder job is the communication piece of it, both to staff and how their roles may or may not change as they incorporate this into their daily activities, but also to the people in our community who this policy is written directly to support and or keep in check as necessary. So how do we send this out? How do we let the public know, aside from it being in our minutes, that as Councillor Blatt says, this is serious business in this day and age, and we mean to take it seriously? How do we let the public know that? And then what do we do to assist our staff in making sure they understand what their role is in how they execute their portion of it with the public?
Through the chair to the chair. One of the things we are looking at building is a media campaign, a social media campaign, as well as a traditional media campaign, and having additional posters potentially put out through some of the facilities that have a more public-facing lobby and area. So it'll be an opportunity for education and an opportunity to support staff as they learn, especially specifically in recreation. A lot of the staff in recreation are under the age of 18, and when they're dealing with adults, they are a little more uncertain of how they should handle it. So specifically looking at some training programs around how to interact with customers in a very respectful and in a way that is assertive and not aggressive.
Thank you so much. If there's no further questions, I call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, it's working.
It's a very, very old building with strange voices rambling from time to time. And they don't necessarily come from councillors or administration. I think we voted on that and we passed that particular motion. We're now into bylaws. And Sue, before we proceed here, there are, I think there's 3 here. And 2 of them are requiring public hearings. So what, for my sake and for the sake of those folks who might be listening, why do we have some of our bylaws having to have a public hearing while others we do not? Because 2 of them have a public hearing, the 3rd one does not.
Through the chair to council, public hearings are required typically when it's related to a statutory document, which is typically land. And other bylaws, like city bylaws for waste management, it's not required. I know that there may have been some confusion at a previous meeting. We had a public hearing for fees and charges that was not required. Once in a while, if there's a controversial issue or something creeping up where council wants increased, I guess, visibility of what's happening, we could offer a public hearing, but it's not mandatory for anything other than statutory documents.
Great, thank you very much. And on that note, under bylaws, for bylaw 2095-25. And if you could identify by name who you are and what your role is so the public knows who's making presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Emily Sangster. I'm the Manager of Planning and Development. The purpose of this report today is to present 3 sets of minor amendments to the land use bylaw for Council's consideration. These were identified through day-to-day operations and stakeholder feedback, and they're detailed in attachment 2 to the request for decision. The first group of amendments is to update our language around receipt of development permit applications to correspond more closely to the Municipal Government Act. The MGA differentiates between when an application is received and when it's deemed complete, which is relevant for the timelines involved. And so these proposed amendments will make this distinction clear in our land use bylaw as well. The second amendment is to allow permit requirements for temporary event signage up to 5 signs, provided they meet the general requirements for this signage in the land use bylaw. This is in keeping with other recent initiatives to streamline the approvals that are required for special events in the city. And the third group of amendments is to clarify when development permits will be required for solar panel installations, exempt probably 99% of these installations from a development permit, and provide a framework for evaluating the small number of installations that may require a development permit. Our land use bylaw dates from before these types of rooftop installations were common, so it is silent on any requirements for them. This set of proposed amendments is meant to provide clear guidelines that also minimize the administrative requirements and applicant fees. Note that building and electrical permits will still be required by safety codes. And with that overview, I'd be happy to take any questions.
I move that council give first reading to bylaw 2095-25 as presented.
That's right. Currently, our land use bylaw isn't really clear on development permit requirements, and so we have been requiring development permit and building and electrical permits. In most cases, because these panels just sit flat on a roof, the feedback we were receiving was, why do we need this? And we looked around a little bit more, we talked with some installers, we looked at other jurisdictions and determined that there's not really a reason that if they're sitting flat on the roof, they're needed. And so we've just opted to propose that a development permit not be required for those cases. Not being required, yeah.
If I could follow up on that then, because in the document it talks about the only thing that would be required would be the safety codes. So if there's no development permit, how do we know that there's needs to be a safety code inspection?
So the development permit generally assesses, or through the chair to council, the development permit assesses the compliance of the project with land use bylaw requirements, and then safety codes, building and electrical and so forth, assess compliance with the provincial safety codes Act and related documents. So planning and development does accept building permit applications as well and coordinates those. So if we are aware of a solar panel project, we can advise the applicant that they may not need a development permit, but we would take in their building permit. Alternatively, if the applicant's installer works with superior safety codes to submit their electrical permit application, they would flag a building permit requirement also. There's a few different entry points where we might identify the requirement.
So there doesn't need to be a development permit, but there needs to be a building permit.
In most cases, yes.
And so, yeah, I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's still an expectation on somebody who's putting in solar panels that there's a tracking mechanism through the building permit.
That's right.
Okay, and that would be the signal that we would then need to have safety codes inspection.
That's right.
Okay. What happens in the event of me installing a bunch of solar panels on my roof without ever doing a building permit?
Through the chair, if in most cases our system is kind of complaints or information based. So if we were then to receive word that, you know, so-and-so has solar panels, we don't believe there's any permits, it's possible that there could be stop orders or other enforcement under the Safety Codes Act.
Great, thank you. Are there any other questions on this motion? Yes, go ahead, please, Councillor Blatz.
Thank you. Through the chair to Emily. Just under special event signage, would this include, let's say there's a hockey game and they put up the sandwich board signs around town, so as long as they don't exceed 5, then they're allowed to have those now?
That's the intention. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Councillor Bronco?
At that point, we would ask that they come in and apply for a permit, so we can assess that all the different locations, that number of them are not, you know, impeding sightlines, they're complying with our bylaw and so forth. The intent is that for very small scale events that aren't putting out too many signs, that we make it a little bit easier to meet land use bylaw requirements.
We have our bylaw officers driving by and they see more than 5. Do they pick it up, or they have to notify the owner to come and remove it? And if they don't do it, you know, 2-3 days later? Because lately we've been having...
Yeah, it's on.
It's on. Okay, I'll speak closer to the mic. So if we have a lot of these signs there, you know, grass cutting, whatever, and it seems like bylaw officer goes by but don't pick it up and it's there for a week. You're basically going on those based on complaints. If nobody complains, then the 5, 10 signs stay up.
But I hear 2 questions there. One is, does the officer pick up signs if they see more than 5, right? And then how does bylaw deal with it? Would that be a safe
That's
reflection?
the question, yes.
Through the chair to council, the officers have the option to pick up the signs depending on capacity. They may call planning and development, who may call the owner of the signs, but if they're on public property, the officers do have the option to simply pick them up.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I would call the question, please, on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. And looking for a second motion, please, Councillor Blatz.
I move that council direct administration to schedule a public hearing for bylaw 2095-25 at the June 23rd, 2025 regular council meeting.
And I don't think there's any questions attached to that, so all in favor? Waiting for a squeaky voice?
Aye.
Thank you, carried unanimously. Moving on to 12.2, bylaw 2093-25.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And you like my introduction as well?
Please, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
I'm Elizabeth Hill. I'm the long-range planner with Planning and Development. And I'm here today to present two bylaws to change the land use of 5523 49th Avenue from residential to commercial. So administration recommends that council approve bylaw 2093-25 to redesignate 5523 49th Avenue from established neighborhood to commercial in the municipal development plan, and that council approve bylaw 2094-25 to redistrict the same property from R2 low-density residential to C3 highway commercial under the land use bylaw. The application to make these amendments was received in conjunction with an application to consolidate 5523 and 5527 49th Avenue in order to provide additional parking to the business located at 5527 49th Avenue. And this application has been conditionally approved. The land use amendments would ensure that the new consolidated parcel has consistent land use designation and zoning. The land use bylaw must be consistent with the municipal development plan, so the redistricting amendment is contingent on approval of the redesignation amendment. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I would look for a motion. Councillor Billingsley, please.
Excuse me, thank you. I move that City Council gives first reading to bylaw 2093-25, amending the Municipal Development Plan, bylaw 2074-24.
Are there any questions? Well, I do. Highway commercial has some unique allowances attached to them. With a private home immediately adjacent to this property, how is that property protected against potential placement of sea cans or storage buildings being placed on the intended parking area? Or, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Sure. Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, we currently have R2 and C3 side by side, so any development applications would be subject to the same kinds of buffering and landscaping requirements, which would be addressed at the development permit stage, so such as fencing or landscaping requirements.
Okay. And that property was R2, but it was, is the home adjacent to that R2 property, is that an R2 property as well, or is that R1?
Through the chair, Councillor Nielsen, it is R2.
Oh, it is R2. Okay, thank you. And, pardon me, the two motions here talking about moving from established neighborhood to commercial and then from R2 to C3 highway. Can you have one without the other? So for example, could you move from an established neighborhood to commercial but leave it as R2, or vice versa? Can you go to R2 but leave it as commercial? In terms of that crissy-crossy thing?
Through the chair, Councillor Nielsen, the R2 to C3 change would require the change in the MDP, because the land use bylaw has to align with the MDP as the higher document. I might need to ask Emily for help on the other way around.
So, Emily, do I need to sort of repeat the question for you?
Through the chair, no, I think
Okay,
I think I
thank
got
you.
it. I think the best response I would give is that in theory it is possible to have the MDP commercial designation and the residential zoning, but in this case, given what's intended for this parcel and the reason why the redistricting and the redesignation are being proposed, it makes the most sense to have them be consistent with each other.
Thank you.
Does that
And
answer
my
the
next question then, thank you. My next question then, to one or either of you, is that the change in designation is in relation to establishing a parking lot. So once that designation is finalized, can the owner of that property change the intended use of that parcel? So while we're sitting here talking about being a parking lot, could it be then changed to construct a building on it? a commercial building?
Through the chair to Councillor Nielsen, yes, once the land use district, the zone is changed, they could then apply for anything that you could apply for under the C3 zone currently, and then it would be on that larger site with the subdivision.
Okay, so the intended use really is immaterial because the intended use could change.
That's correct. The focus is the zone could allow other things, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very
May I
much.
just simply jump in just to expand on that answer and note that, it could be used for whatever is permissible in highway commercial C3, but just to note that any requirements of that C3 zone in terms of setbacks or building height or buffering or anything like that would remain in effect.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Councilor Bronco?
Thank you, Chair. So we're changing that parking lot, that residential lot to a parking lot. We have a residence home. I'm just thinking of one, if that parking lot were to put a light against closest to the resident, now the resident goes at night and his whole backyard is lit up. Is there any rules against that? Because we are changing that resident's quality of life. He slept good, there was no lights, there's no nothing. He doesn't have to go buy curtains to close the light. Is there restrictions to put that light so many feet away or in the middle of the parking lot so it does not affect the residents?
Through the chair to Councillor Branco, the land use bylaw does have regulations around, I can't remember the exact wording, but around light affecting other properties. So those would still apply, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Having none, motion's on the floor, and all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
I move that City Council gives first reading to Bylaw 209425, amending the land use bylaw 1804-13.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councilor Bronco.
Thank you. By making that parking lot commercial, does that mean the drainage of that parking lot will be draining on the city property, or do they have to put a catch basin or a manhole in the middle of the parking lot to collect its own water instead of flooding our own system, because that is a paved, hopefully a paved parking lot?
Through the chair to Councillor Branco, if they apply for a change of use to put in the parking lot, they will have to address drainage and meet the city's engineering standards that would apply at that time.
Thank you.
Great. Motion on the floor. Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approved unanimously. One more motion, please. Councilor Billingsley.
Thank you. I move that City Council direct administration to schedule a public hearing for the recommended amendment for June 23rd, 2025 at 9 a.m.
And I would call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And that was carried unanimously as well. Thank you. We have 12.3 Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25. And as usual, I'll ask for you to identify who you are and the role you play with the city so the public knows who's making the presentation.
Sure.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Sean Seawright. My role with the city is as Public Works Manager.
Good morning. My name is Babatunde Maraisa, and I'm the Environmental Services Supervisor with the City of Wetaskiwin.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So we're here today, again, to present the Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25 for second and third reading. Council gave first reading to the updated Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25 at the May 26, 2025 regular council meeting. The summary of changes are outlined below. Again, I won't read through these. A lot of the changes were centered around organics collection and materials. I will point out again, one of the implications of this program is that administration is looking for some additional tools to deal with multifamily complexes and be able to exclude them from waste collection services. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Looking for a motion from the floor? Councillor Appleby?
Sorry. I move that City Council give second reading to the Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25.
And I would ask if there is any questions. I know there's been a ton of questions leading up to this, so maybe we've questioned ourselves out here, Sean. Seeing no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried unanimously.
I move that City Council gives third reading to Waste Management Bylaw 2084-25.
Any,
Sorry, the last vote wasn't unanimous.
I'm sorry?
Last vote wasn't unanimous.
Did you vote against it?
No, he did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Run that back.
Already done, thank you.
Aye. Mr. Chair, your mic doesn't seem to be working.
Yes, you're right. It doesn't seem to be working. I will be.
There we go.
I will be more diligent here. Thank you. I'm so busy
Thank
trying
you.
to learn this new role, I forget to even turn my mic on. Thank you. Thanks very much, gentlemen. We're on item number 14, closed session. We have a number of items to discuss. In closed session, I would ask for a motion to move into closed session.
I move that we move.
Could you read that into the records, please, Councilor Bronco?
I move that we go into a closed session to discuss matters that fall within one expectation disclosure of Division 2 of Part 1 of Freedom of Information Act, Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you so very much. All in favor? And carried.
Oh, that one over there.
Welcome back. I'm looking for a motion to come out of closed session. Thank you, Councillor Billingsley. All in favor? And that is carried. I believe we have a motion coming out of closed session. I'm wondering if you could put that up for us, please.
Jess, are we able to take the two on Teams off hold?
Are we okay to proceed then?
If you're okay without Councillor Elliott weighing in. They need to log out and re-log in because it won't let, the system won't let us take them off hold.
Because we only have 6 and it could be a potential vote, I think we need to hold until we get Councillor Elliott at the table.
Okay. Mr. Chair, you could go on with the rest of the business and then we could come back to this at the end of new business.
I could, and so I will. Thank you for that advice. Under new business, are there any items to be added to new business? And I'd look to administration. Is there anything to add there, Sue? I have 2 items. So item 15.2 would be letter from resident. And 15.3 would be Manluk Aquatic Center board rider. Are you okay with that, Jessica? Okay. And let's move to 15.1 wastewater rate discussion. Yes, we do. God, you guys just keeping me in check. So, all in favor of adding letter from a resident to new business? Carried. And Manluk Aquatic Center board rider? Opposed? Okay. And that one is carried as well. Now we are ready, Councillor Aberle, for 15.1 wastewater rate discussion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nielsen. So the purpose of this RFD, I'm not going to read this, is I did want to reopen discussion about a previous decision made from council, and I can do that as is my right because I was on the prevailing side of the original motion. I have, for the past year at least, been a very strong supporter both on the Peace Hills Utilities Board and here in council chambers to reduce our water rates as much as we could with the new money that was hard worked for that we've got back from the provincial government to give that back to our ratepayers. And one of the things that I had continued to say, especially in the Peace Hills board meetings, was when people were coming, or not coming to us, but were arguing that capital costs, we needed to continue to maintain some money for capital costs that were coming in the future. I continue to think of those as sort of unforeseens. We didn't know, and there was a crisis now. Let's deal with it now. At our most recent board meeting last month, there was a 10-year capital plan put forward for us, and that has been presented in the RFD. I asked that that be included, if that could be included, so people could, both council and the public could see what I was looking for and what changed looking at, and the things that started to change my mind. And what it comes down to is when I started to look at the types of projects that we need, I am concerned now that we're going to run into a issue where we're not only concerned about whether or not we're cleaning our water, but whether or not we're being able to get clean water to our residents, because there are water main rehabilitations that need to be done as we're looking into the future. Also, pump house cranes, I mean, these are all on the first list, but various things we need to do to make what is currently part of our water system to our residents safe for our workers. And the Peace Hills Board is at a point where the current water rates are not going to allow us to do this without coming back to council and asking for more taxpayers' money from the taxpayers in future budgets. And I do not want to put that solely on those with the privilege that have property to have to pay for all the water that is used throughout this community by multiple people. With that being said, I would move that City Council amends the increase to the wastewater rates to 3%.
Thank you. I wonder if we need a motion first to actually have council reconsider the motion.
Do we need both?
Right. So the first motion, I appreciate where you're heading with this, but the first motion is that council reconsider motion 174-25 from April 14, 2025 regular council meeting. As per your authority, do so as a person on the prevailing side of the previous vote.
I understand that. Okay, I will make that one first. So I can table the motion I made because I want it to come up.
Sorry, I'm getting some advice from the back corner here. Yes, Jessica?
Sorry to interrupt through the chair to Councillor Aberley. We need the first motion to actually lift that from the floor. And the second motion that you read should say by 3%, not to 3%. Right.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Right.
So I'll withdraw my motion to say that I move that City Council reconsiders motion 174-25 from the April 14, 2025 regular council meeting.
Great. Thank you so much. Are there any questions then related to that? Hearing none, I would call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Now, please, Councillor Aberley, if you'd like to proceed with your second motion, please.
So I move that council or City Council amends the increase to the wastewater rates by 3%.
Okay, thank you. I have,
For clarification.
please go ahead.
Through the chair. Are we increasing them by 3%? We're not, are we?
No.
We are, it's my understanding we are, because we have already moved to decrease by, so now that's tabled, or that's not tabled, that's in, that motion has succeeded, and now I'm saying what we agreed to, raise by 3%.
So, but the original motion that was just passed, we reconsider the motion, so that original motion is now, is it still there, or we now debate, like, I'm trying to get, so, because we said 6, we were going to reduce by 6, correct? So, but then, we're
So, Sue, I think you know where we're headed here. The original motion that passed was for a 6% decrease to the water rates, which passed by council. Councillor Aberley from the prevailing side has decided she would like to reconsider that motion. And so the clarification needed then is what happens to the motion that talked about a 6% decrease? Does this motion that Councillor Aberley is putting on the floor now supersede the first motion, or do we need to rescind that first motion?
Through the chair to council, so because you're reconsidering the original motion, both language, it works the same because it's half of what it was. So even though it was 6% and that was already approved, you're reconsidering it. And if you reconsider it to 3% increase, then it essentially just means there was a 3% decrease.
Decrease.
Yeah.
Not a 6.
Instead of a 6% decrease. So
you're leaving
you,
the 6, and then we're
you approved 6.
and that stays.
And this motion will increase it by 3% so that your original motion is only a 3% decrease.
I sit where you're sitting, Councillor Billingsley, in the sense that the original motion said we are going to decrease it by 6. And this motion now is saying we're going to increase it to 3%.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nielsen. The first motion that we made today just allows us to talk about it.
Right.
So that 6% decrease still stands regardless of what this current motion exists. So if we defeat the current motion,
It will be a 6%.
it will still be the 6% decrease.
Right. So it's a matter of semantics, I guess, is what you're saying, Sue. This minus the decrease of 6% stands. This is amending it to change from a 6% decrease. We're adding and amending an additional 3%. So in fact, the end result will be a 3% decrease to the wastewater rates.
That is correct. And just the language that Councillor Aberle used was a reduction or increase by. Yeah. So it's the language that makes it happen. So yes, it was at 6. That still stands. You're reconsidering that. If you reduce it by or increase it by 3%, then it's a 3% reduction of the original one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so as long we're all on the same line of intention.
Yes.
Okay. And you're happy with the way this
Yep.
has all been explained?
Yes.
All right. Are there any questions of council? Oh, sorry. Bill? Sorry, Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering, why don't we just amend the first motion and say reduce it by 3% instead of 6%? To me, that would be much clearer.
I would look for some direction from administration, Sue.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, I believe because we've already acted on that motion, that it stands. Like, you have to do this other motion. You can't just amend the previous one because it's already been executed by the city. So you actually have to do this new motion.
Okay, I just don't want the public to be confused, that's all.
I totally agree, and that's why I think it's important that the intention is clearly understood, not only around the table here, but once it goes out to the residents. So, Councillor Aberle?
Through the chair to administration, am I correct that, as you said, it's already been acted upon because the new water rates came in effect at the beginning of June?
Through the chair to Councillor Aberle, that's correct.
Yeah, so that's where, yeah, that deduction by another 3% will be, again, in the future. Which leads to my next question is, should I add a date?
Through the chair to Councillor Aberle, that is a very good point. The bills are from the 1st of the month to the end and go out by the 10th, so we would have to...
So
we still need to go into GP, though, and change everything, so I'm wondering if it can be for the July bill. Or, sorry, it would be August at the earliest that we could.
So may I amend my motion at this point to add that? So the amendment would be for the September 1st billing period to come into effect September 1st. And it seems perhaps in some ways a little counterproductive, as the summer is when we use the most water. But what I was thinking is, because we did do this in April, and as people were budgeting, that does give a few months for budgeting time. through the period in which we use the most water. And we are able to cover the capital costs of this year. It was going into the future years that the board was going to have problems being able to fix our main rehabilitations. That's some of the stuff that I was the most concerned about, so that is my amendment.
So your amendment would be to add on to this statement, effective
September 1st.
September 1st of 2025.
Yes.
To that amendment, any questions? Hearing none, I call a question on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That would be carried. Now back to the original motion then, which would read that City Council amends the increase to the wastewater rates to 3% effective September 1, 2025. So we're clear on that. Questions? Councillor Platts?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I uphold the same comments that I made back in April. We're in an affordability crisis, and I don't believe that taking away something that was supposed to be a relief for our residents is something that I can, in good consciousness, vote in favor of. I understand where we're coming from on it, but we were given a grant by the province to help with these costs, and with the understanding that we would reduce our wastewater rates, and the fact that it's very minimal that we would be reducing those rates, I just can't, in good faith, vote for that. So that's where my stance is.
Rebuttal, no? No, it's not necessary.
I really do not disagree at all, and I held on to that for a long time. Where my change of mind came is that a financial crisis is going to continue, and I want to reduce an overall increase in water rates as we look into at least the next 5 years. I think that, and that was the change of my mind, is when I thought it could be, when I originally thought it was, sorry, I think it's the smoke. When I originally was starting to look, I was thinking capital projects that were wants, not needs, and then I started to look into that they were needs, and we were going to be increasing water rates exponentially for a large amount of time, or requesting from council to increase taxes based on that, because regardless, these aren't wants for our water, they're needs. And I thought for myself, this was the, I don't want to say stomach, but I thought that this was the best case scenario for being able to budget during this financial crisis.
Councillor Blass, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Councillor Aberley, once again, I can see your thought process on it. I just can't agree with it. And that's also to do with the fact that I think I'm mildly frustrated with the fact that there just keeps being more capital projects with our wastewater treatment facility, and in the future we can apply for more grants or look into borrowing more money, but I just, like I said, for right now, this is not something that's a priority to me.
The only thing I wanted to add to that we're not primarily talking about wastewater anymore. It's moving into, and I think that was also where my brain just started to go, and I appreciate your decision, and that's where I started to be like, ooh, I'm looking at water mains and how we're going to get water, or how we're going to fix those. And after Calgary was shut down for months, and living with that just because that's where my family's from, I thought this was my chance to maybe start to look at that, and it was a hard decision. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I know from discussions that were held at the Peace Hills Utility Board meeting, the issue that was really at play here is infrastructure. And I know the community sees a new wastewater treatment plant, but I think the point that's been raised is that that's really a pretty small portion of our total infrastructure related to water and wastewater, and that there's so much more behind the scenes that is aged and aging. And the presentation that we received at Pieces Utility is that in this budget year, there's a need for over $5 million worth of capital infrastructure actions. And at this point in time, we don't have all the resources to cover those expenses. And those are ongoing expenses over the next 10 years, as Councillor Aberley said. So I certainly understand the concern that's been expressed relative to community abilities to pay and pay bills. But at the same time, we've got some major infrastructure issues that to get resolved here as well. So, Councillor Billingsley?
Thank you, through the chair. I understand that we made a promise, a pitch to the provincial government of reducing our rates. But as Councillor Nielsen said, we have a infrastructure deficit that we're going to have to address anyway. So we certainly could reduce it by that 6 today. And in fact, we had until if this passes. But next year, we're going to be increasing it anyway because of the fact that we have $5 million or whatever the dollar amount of infrastructure that has to be addressed. So pay me today or pay me tomorrow. Either way, we have to pay. And if it doesn't want to come out of here, if we don't want to, then we move it to taxation. And then when you talk about affordability, either way, somebody has to pay, and it's going to be the residents. We just have to decide on how.
And I think it's also a fair comment that as opportunities present themselves for the city to apply for grants for upcoming capital projects, that we would do everything we can to access those dollars in support of those projects as well. Councillor Bronco, you had a comment?
Yes, to the chair. In a real fantasy world, we all would love to get our infrastructure. We waited 70, 80 years to get Main Street sewer line made up. We have projects that don't have in time, don't complete. We're still moving on. We don't know what the infrastructure goes on. A lot of our infrastructure is new, but still needs a lot of repair. But I don't know what, it's going to come to the point, is it affordable to live? With water, waste, everything going up? We know we have to replace it, but in the fantasy world, I'd love to have all the new curbs, sidewalk, but I don't think that's going to happen. Reality kicks in. We don't know what's going to break tomorrow. We can have the power lines all go down. We can have water breaks, backup, pressure. We don't know. And I can't support this.
Go ahead, Councillor Aberley.
Thank you, Councillor Bronco. If you look at what is the third line on the chart that was given out, so this is looking at water mains. The last thing that we want, I understand, I agree with you. If a curb crumbles and we have to do a temporary fix on a curb, it's not a perfect world. If we are unable to get clean drinking water to the majority or even a fraction of our residents, that's why I'm saying these things are not, these are not the nice to haves. And it's hard for me because I am very cognizant of all of the arguments, and I've changed my mind, and it was that line of looking at whether or not we're getting clean drinking water in 2, 3, 4 years. And if I can't bring clean drinking water to my community, then I believe I have failed both, and my voice is cracking only because I'm losing my voice, not because I'm upset. I've failed both as a Peace Hills Utilities board member to have drinking water to my residents and as a councillor. Again, these are not the things that you're going to see that are flashy and new and make a community look good. This is literally survival and the things we require to live in this community. Thank you.
and I appreciate that. But who's to say we're not going to have fresh drinking? We could, this argument was brought up 15 years ago in Wetaskiwin, and who's the board there? We can only fix what's bad. We have temporary repairs. Do we pave a whole road because we have a water break? Because it looks like, I'm sorry, can't use that word, but it looks like bad. But you got to remember one thing. You're talking to business people. We want to spend money so we can make a profit. We're here to provide a service to our community at the best service at the cheapest rate. But I can't stand here knowing we got government money, we lobby them to pay lots of money. Hopefully it was paid to make the cost to live in Wetaskiwin cheaper. And I can't predict the future. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I'd be a millionaire. I'd be sitting someplace nice and warm on a yacht. I can't predict what's going to happen, and we can't predict that our drinking water, and that's something, sorry to correct you, but to say to our clientele that we may not have fresh drinking water in 4 or 5 years, it's a scary thought. I'm glad I got a well, but
If I could.
but anyways, I just think
No, and everybody has their own position. I'm gonna ask a question of administration of Kathy, and representing Peace Hills Utility or Sue, whomever. The sheet that was given to council shows the millions of dollars that are necessary for infrastructure in our community over the next 10 years. To date, for 2025, it's saying $2.2 million, and 2026, it's saying 5.6. Currently, Peace Hills is sitting with what in reserves relative to looking after these capital projects over the next 2 years? I'm sorry to catch you off guard, Kathy.
Through the chair to council. So currently, the Peace Hills reserves is sitting at approximately $2.4 million. But of course, if we get all of these projects done for 2025, that pretty much eliminates our reserves for the current capital year. And then, of course, as we collect utility rates, we'll be able to build up our reserves again. But yeah, over the next 10 years, there's multi-millions of dollars of work that is required.
So that we have sufficient dollars to cover the capital costs for 2025, which is what Councillor Aberle said. We would then have zero in our reserves for 2026 with the $5.6 million recommended infrastructure projects. And the way to collect $5.6 million to put into reserves to tackle the infrastructure would be borne how?
Through the chair to council. So it would be through the utility rates, requesting grant funding. But of course, because it's a municipally controlled corporation, any grant funding that Peace Hills requests does have an effect on how grant funding can be for the city of Wetaskiwin. So there could be limits on the grant funding based on that.
Right. So the only predictable source of revenue to cover 5.6 is through water rates.
Correct.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on the motion that is before us today? And again, I would state that City Council amends the increase to the wastewater rates to 3% effective September 1st, 2025. Is that correct? And if there's no further questions, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried 4-2. I do want to make a comment, though, for those people who might be watching or listening or whatever. I think a lot of times residents in the community oftentimes think that council comes together and already has a preordained idea of how they're going to vote on certain topics and issues. And in actual fact, we had a situation where we made a motion a number of meetings ago, and after receiving more information, we had a councillor who said, I'm prepared to reconsider, not knowing where that motion was going to go. It could have easily been defeated. But I think what it reflects is a desire on the part of council to get good information in order to make good decisions on behalf of the community. So regardless of how this turned out, I'd like to thank you, Karen, for your reconsideration to at least bring it back to the table. I appreciate that. Item number 15.2, letter from resident. We recently changed some procedures where we asked administration to direct all communication that was directed to council, so we could see the communication. We didn't want to be caught having to say to somebody, did you see my letter that I sent council? And we said no, it went to our city administrator. We just recently received a letter to council with regard to some concerns about a new business in town and what the city was going to, or how the city should respond to the business. And our city manager does not have the authority to respond to that communication because of the motion that was put forward that comes to us. So I think we need to provide Sue some direction about responding to this letter as a starter. And I would move, personally, that council directs Sue to respond to the letter writer to indicate that it's not within the city's jurisdiction.
Can I have clarification of exactly what letter you're speaking of?
We received a copy of a letter sent out to us. Do you want to, without naming names and so forth, Sue, can you just enlighten us on what I'm trying to say here delicately?
Through the chair to Councillor Billingsley, it was sent into the administration email, and then I forwarded it, that word is hard today, to council and asked if you wanted me to respond or if someone else was going to. And then, yeah, we just need some clarification about these processes, and I think that's an easy one, this one particular letter, but then it just raises the bigger question about how we handle these moving forward. Does it ring a bell? Okay.
So I do have a motion put forward. Are you okay with that, Jessica? That simply directs Sue to respond to the letter writer indicating that that is outside of the city's jurisdiction. Go ahead.
Just for clarification, I want to make sure we got the right letter. So was this the letter that was sent on June the 3rd?
Correct.
Thank you.
So, if there's no further questions, I'll call a question. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
That would be carried. And I'm looking, if I may continue this conversation a little bit, because unfortunately, I'm the individual that made the motion in the first place that all communication comes back to council. And this is the first evidence that I've received that it's a little clunky, to say the least. And I guess I'd be looking for ways in which, A, we get the communication as requested, but it's not held up for weeks while we wait for a council meeting or something of that nature. And I don't know whether to make this a motion, Sue, or what, but I think this has given us an indication about the clunkiness of this and looking for a way to, I guess, meet the intentions of the original motion without it being so encumbering. Should that be a motion, or is that just something that we could ask you to look at and bring back in the future?
To the chair, I could definitely look at it. There's a bunch of different scenarios. So, for example, we often get emails in complaining about policing matters and things like that where they want council to take action. And I have some ideas on potentially how we could address those and still not have to change the bylaw. But there's a couple of different scenarios, so maybe, yeah, I could take it away and then bring it back at, you know, a future council meeting for discussion as a new business item for council to consider. It may require a bylaw change, but I think having that discussion first is important.
Would this council be okay with that direction without it being a motion? Fine, we'll leave it there then, Sue, if you would provide some direction for us in the future. Item 15.3, Manluk Aquatic Center Board Rider. I recently put in a formal information request with regard to the status of the Manluk Board Rider, and got what I thought was an appropriate response back in terms of some of our last conversations about selling parts of the board rider and so forth. And so the matter was closed. And I guess I'm looking to administration to enlighten us, I guess, because it comes to mind that some of the conversations regarding the board rider when it was deemed to be inoperable was we were looking at repurposing the area. Some of the ideas that were thrown out included storage space or new viewing area or that kind of thing. And while we have determined that A, we're not pulling the turbines out to see if they are fixable, and we're not selling the parts, I wonder if we still have got actions to take relative to the conversations we had at council about, okay, if we're not going to sell the parts and we're not going to refurbish and try and fire the activity up again, what are we going to do with that space? So can you, like, where are we at with all of that, Sue? Or, sorry, Kevin?
Through the chair to council. Right now, administration is a bit of a standstill with that because we're, like, as you talked about, we haven't had clear direction from council on what to do. Our intent is to bring back operating business case or capital charter to council for their review in the upcoming budget.
So it hasn't been lost then?
It hasn't been lost.
Okay. So I'm okay at this point in time unless there's questions or comments from elsewhere. I'm good with that. Thank you very much for the response. And unless I'm missing the boat, and it's quite possible I am, I would adjourn this meeting at 11:53 and a half. Sorry? It's 11:54. Just turned to 11:54, I've been told. So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time.
Jessica, do you have to start another one for the, okay, perfect.